Hey, this is Wade from Everyday Sustainable. Today we're talking about eating. Why? Because we all do it every day, and it's a place where large or even small changes can make a huge impact on how sustainable our lives are. Today specifically we're talking about vegetarian and vegan eating. So what's the big deal about meat and animal products anyway? Well, let's jump right into it. First, I'm going to hit you with some stats regarding how vegetarian and vegan diets compare to diets that eat meat. For starters, vegetarian diets produce about half of the greenhouse gases that meat-eating diets do, require about a quarter of the energy to produce, and overall are about 41% more efficient than meat-eating diets. Those are some pretty significant numbers. Why is all this? Quite simply, the lower on the food chain you eat, the more efficient it is. Meat-eating diet is at the top of the food chain, and there's energy loss at each step up the food chain. So it's just simply more efficient to eat lower on the food chain. Connected to eating lower on the food chain is how much land and water is required to grow livestock. About a third of the whole world's agricultural land is used simply to grow the food that our livestock eats. That's crazy. One study found that we would save 75% of all agricultural land if the whole world went vegan. Obviously, that's not going to happen anytime soon, but it just goes to show how much resources are devoted to growing the meat that we eat. The inefficiency in all this becomes even more obvious when we point out that only about 18% of the total world's calories comes from meat. So even though it's using up a vast majority of the land we devote to agriculture, it's a small minority of the calories we eat. It's simply not an efficient or sustainable way to live. A 2019 Oxford study found that going vegan is the single best way an individual can combat climate change. That's crazy. The final stat I'll share on this topic is the stat that really started to change my mind. I read that cutting out one single cheeseburger from my diet would be the same as not burning a half a gallon of gas. I thought to myself, I would often drive a shorter distance or try to cut down on my commute, maybe buy a more efficient car to be more sustainable. So why not cut out one cheeseburger? It's just one cheeseburger, not a cheeseburger a week or a day, just one meal. Replace that cheeseburger with a salad or something like that. I wasn't very sophisticated in my thinking about being vegetarian. I just thought, that's a big difference for just one cheeseburger. And this is not to mention all the other impacts, like the antibiotics we use to grow our livestock, the way the animals are treated, overfishing in the ocean. There's several different reasons why you might consider cutting meat out of your diet. If you want to read more about that, everything I've said thus far and other resources are all in the description below, so I encourage you to check those things out. But for the sake of time, we're going to move on to defining some terms. So the first term I want to define is vegetarian. That's quite simply not eating any meat, whether that be a cow, a fish, a sheep, anything like that. No animals. Next is pescatarian. This is like a vegetarian, but they're okay with eating fish. Next is poultarian. That is somebody who's okay with eating birds, whether that be chicken, turkey, duck, those kinds of things, but no fish and no land animals. Next is pescatarian. You might be able to guess, this is somebody who wouldn't eat any land animals, sometimes called red meat, but they're okay with eating both fish and birds. Finally, we have vegan. Vegan is somebody that's like a vegetarian, won't eat any meat, but also won't eat any animal product. All these terms can be quite confusing, and these are just categories. The fact is, as an individual, you can choose to eat what you want to eat and what you don't want to eat. So if you're considering making your diet more sustainable, find what works for you. Some vegans, for example, are okay with eating eggs and honey. In some, regardless of the terms, this is a very personal decision. It depends on your dietary restrictions and health. It might depend on your religion or background. Even in our increasingly individualistic world, eating is a very communal activity. We eat the things our family feeds us. We eat the things our family taught us to make. So it can be a difficult transition to eating less meat. But you don't have to do it all in one go. You can just start somewhere. So let me tell you about my own experience towards vegetarianism. That's right, I'm vegetarian. I'm not yet vegan. At this point, I'm a vegetarian who leans towards veganism, but rarely eats meat. Get it? Rarely? It's funny, right? I started by just doing no meat 1 day a week. I called it Meatless Mondays. I heard this on a podcast somewhere, and again, that stat about cutting out 1 cheeseburger being the same as not burning half a gallon of gas, that really got to me. So I decided, why not just do 1 day, no meat? After a few months of that, it was going pretty well, so I decided to make my 2017 New Year's resolution to do no meats at lunch, in addition to Meatless Monday. That went pretty well. I was learning some new recipes and foods I liked. I was feeling pretty good, so my 2018 New Year's resolution was no meat at all. I went full-on vegetarian. I never envisioned that I'd do it forever. I thought it would just be a year, and at this point, I haven't looked back. I've been a vegetarian since. I used to think I could never give up meat. I would say things that I've heard all the time from other people since, like, I could never do that. I could never give up bacon. Bacon? Are you kidding me? But I just started somewhere, just 1 day a week, and next thing I knew, I was learning new things to eat, I was feeling good, I was enjoying it, so I just kept going. And that would be my encouragement to you, just start somewhere. Right now, I'm at a place where I eat vegetarian 98% of the time. I occasionally eat meat when I'm on vacation and there's no other options, or when I'm at family's house and meat is just what's being served. I'll still eat less meat. It's more of a side than a main course, but for the sake of being polite and courteous, I'll eat it sometimes. As I said, eating is a very communal activity. I understand that breaks in family can happen if you just outright say, I'm vegan now and that's it. I won't eat anything you cook for me if it has animal products. I didn't want to do those kinds of things. I'm happy to, from time to time, eat meat, or as I said, eat it more as a side than a main dish. But for the most part, I'm vegetarian. And the reason why I say I lean towards veganism is I don't eat much dairy at all, occasionally cheese, and I'm not super particular about looking at all the condiments in something I might order at a restaurant to ensure there's no dairy in it. So I try to eat vegan when I can, but I'm not particularly a stickler about it. All that to say, what you eat is a very personal decision. And it's a personal decision that's made in the context of your family unit, of your religious background, of your dietary restrictions. You know you better than me. So let me ask you this question. Where can you start? What can you do to eat more sustainably today? It's a journey. You're not gonna go cold turkey from eating meat to eating nothing. If you're already cutting meat out of your diet, what more can you do? I ask myself that question all the time. It bears noting that it's easier to eat vegetarian today than it ever has been. Just look at all the companies that are now serving things like Beyond, Impossible, McPlant. McPlant? Even Taco Bell has their potato options, and their CEO that was a potato teased that they'd have Beyond options in the next year. There's so many restaurants out there that are offering meat replacement options. And after you've been vegetarian for a while, you start to not miss meat as much, and it's kind of fun to eat things that don't have any meat substitutes in them. I want to close by saying that I really have enjoyed my journey towards vegetarianism. It hasn't at all felt like a sacrifice. I've loved the new foods I've learned about, the new recipes I've learned, and the things I've tasted, also the way I feel. I haven't even mentioned the health benefits of eating less meat. If you want to read about that, there's tons of resources out on the web, and I've dropped some links below. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing right here. I'd love it if you did. I have some great videos planned. And the truth about climate change is it's bigger than us as individuals. Because of that, I made a video talking about Biden's first 100 days in the White House and why it's important from a climate change perspective. Check it out if you're interested. For now, may we be better citizens of the world today and every day. See you in the next one.